Gabriel can also start to record and stream.
Okay, so I click purpose.
Yeah, and the attendees are entering now. Okay.
Okay.
Chiara, you start.
Okay. Hello. Welcome to our workshop. We will wait some minutes for people to join the workshop. I see that a lot of people are getting connected. So thanks for joining us. People are connecting. We will wait 2 minutes more before starting. Thanks for joining. So for the ones who are connecting now, we are waiting 1 more minute before starting to leave time for people to connect to our event. Okay. Okay, I see it is getting stable, the number of people connected. Well, it's 4:05 and we are going to start. So thanks a lot to all the attendees to join our workshop today about gamification and public space co-creation. So our workshop is developed in the framework of the Public Play Space project, which promotes innovative and creative practices for co-design of inclusive, cohesive, and sustainable public space through the use of game and digital technologies. So game and digital technologies will be the main focus of our session and our workshop today. The Public Play Space project is co-funded by the Creative Europe program of the European Union. So we are in the framework of a European project, and it is developed by 3 partners. We have as IAAC, the Institute for Advanced Architecture of Catalonia, the Breda University of Applied Sciences, and CLAC from Palermo. So, okay, it looks... So what we want to do is to establish a transdisciplinary platform. And to do this, we have several activities. We want to explore how the game approach in combination with advanced digital technologies, as for example, virtual and augmented reality and data science tools, can be used to foster the process of placemaking and the process of appropriation of space by the people. So we focus on co-design and co-creation of public space. As told, we have several activities in the project that you can follow. This project will last 2 more years. We are setting up a best practice repository. So for all the people that are interested in the best practices regarding gaming and public space, we will publish on our website and on our social medias the link to the repository as soon as it will be ready. We have 3 workshops. One has been already done in Breda. The other 2 in Barcelona and Palermo should have been already done, but with the coronavirus, we are planning to have them this summer or in September. These are open to students. There will be 3 days workshop, and if you will be interested, they will be free of charge, so we will be very happy to host you. There will be at a certain point when we will understand how it will be possible to organize them, a call to select the participants, and you will be more than happy to, we will be more than happy to welcome you on our workshops in Barcelona and in Palermo, that are the ones that are still missing. We will have some open game events in Breda and Barcelona and in Palermo, where we will demonstrate with people the best video games or games for participation that we will develop in the workshops. And we will have an itinerant exhibition, we will write a book, and around September 2021, we will have a big symposium on the topic of the project. We will also launch a call for papers, so you will be more than welcome to send papers, and we will be very happy to receive them. You can follow all our activities on our website, where there are more details on the activities that we are going to develop within the project, on our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram page. On our website, you can find the links to the Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So now we will start with the presentations. You can comment, you can ask questions or raise your hand in the webinar. We will have Nick van Apeldoorn from BUAS, which will speak about game mechanics. We will have Davide Leone from CLAC that will speak about play in a city pandemia. And we will have Marco Gracia from IAAC that will make a demonstration of the SuperBarrio app that has been developed at IAAC as a game for participation. So I'm very happy to leave the floor to Nick, and I will also stop to share my presentation. So Nick, if you would like to start.
I would very much like to start. Here's my presentation. Presenters mode. Everything is in place now. Perfect. So hi, my name is Nick van Apeldoorn. I'm a researcher at Breda University of Applied Sciences. I'm quite used to talking at conferences. I think this is the first conference that is completely digital, and also the first presentation I ever gave, in which I'm not sure if everyone who was watching it was actually wearing pants. Yeah, this is a bit of who I am. I'm a researcher and a project leader at BUAS. I have a background in spatial planning, and my master really focused about urban sociology. And when I started to work as a researcher, I was mostly focusing on projects which were about social inclusion, especially of minority groups, kids and elderly people. And for the one who know me a little bit longer, also outside my work, I love playing games. I'm quite a game fanatic. Whenever I was a child, I loved playing games. I was very competitive. I still am. I'm not good at losing games, and I've worked for now 8 years as a game leader, in which I facilitate serious games. So when IAAC came to BUAS, if we want to collaborate on this project, BUAS said, really cool idea. And they asked me, because I like games, because I think about inclusion quite often in my work. And I love working with all those little different tech elements that make this field so beautiful. Because what is a game? I was asked to talk about the game mechanics.
Sorry, Nick, for the interruption. We can see the your notes for the presenter.
No problem. Then I click them away. Is that better?
Thank you. Yeah, it's perfect.
Perfect. So talking about the game mechanics, I think two principles should be leading when thinking about urban games. The first one is, if it doesn't feel like a game, there's a very good chance you're not actually develop a game, because a game has all those sort of play elements. It has to be fun. It has to be interesting. It has to be challenging. It has to make you question stuff. I think this is always an important question to keep in mind when thinking of gamification of public space. And the second one is, if it's just a game, now what is its purpose? Like, do we only have games to make it interesting, to make it fun, or can we do even more with it? And I think this is exactly the playing field that we, within public play space, try to investigate. Like, what can we do with urban games? Because this is the big question. We have big groups of people think through games about placemaking. So in the end, we have participatory placemaking through play. And I think that's a very interesting philosophy, because if you look at how the digitalization of public space, but also from people, is progressing, is going so fast. Like everyone has a smartphone at this point, and pretty much all those phones have already augmented reality in them. Like for the audience who ever played Pokemon Go, that is a form of very basic augmented reality. And this is something we will see much more often in the future, and it's only going to get bigger and bigger. So I think this is a very interesting question to ask at this point. What can games actually mean for urban planning, for space making, for architecture? So then you started a project and you think about urban games. Like there's already some work before us. We just started in October, so we're quite new to this field, although we have some past experience. So if you look at urban games in Google, you get 1,130,000,000 search results, and which is impressive, just in 0.63 seconds. So there's already a lot out there. Only a big problem is like, it's hard to find really quality data and games that you could use for urban planning and space making. And I think this is exactly something in the gap that we from Public Play Space try to fill. So then you start thinking about it. Okay, there are so many good examples of things that we could do. But if you or a municipality just want to implement the game tomorrow, I wish them a lot of luck, because it's quite difficult to find good examples according to their needs. And this is something that we try to solve with a catalog, with a book, and try to bring that to people in open game events. So we started thinking on how can we actually first scope what there is. Like I'm a researcher, I like to think on the big theory levels, the big skills. And I have some amazing interns working with me on this project. So we started sketching. Like what are the elements of different games? So we thought about space, about game, about play, and then think of all the subcategories to really to help people navigate through what is already there. And we're going to develop a wiki about it. So then you also need a good classification structure to make it even useful. Otherwise, this is still an issue. It's about making one of those 1 billion plus games applicable for many people, and if they need games, to give them quick and easy access to it. So this is just a theory, but how can we actually apply it to existing games? So we published a call. A lot of people reacted to it. If you personally also work in this field and would like to hand in, we're still interested to hear your ideas about games. You can ask us in the chat box about how to publish a call. And one of those was Redesire. It's a game developed by Rolf van Boxmeer. He's an architect, and with a team of also artists, he thought about how can we let big groups of people think about the different desires when developing an area. And Redesire is about making it possible to make them visible at the start of a project, because now, quite often, not you, because you're all perfect architects have experienced this. You develop a perfect plan, and in the end, you try to present it to the people, and they don't like it. And that's when we have a problem. What Redesire tries to do is try to map those potential problems now and try to play them out and see like what are the different desires of different stakeholders and how can we balance them in one design. So it plays like a game. It's both digitally and analog. You play it with a group from 3 to 20 people, and you divide them in different stakeholder categories. Then you let them write down like what their desires are, their most important ones. And then you play different rounds, and each round you present the design and people can comment on it. It's sort of like a big digital brainstorm session. In the end, people can rank it to really see like if your desires also match their desires. And then the winning team is the one in which the desires of the people matches best with the desires of the designers, to see if you can find some balance in that. And just like in the real world, it's not just about here's your idea and this is what we can do about it. It's also about the dialogue and the communication, also compelling people to really understand that point of view and the deeper meaning behind it. So it's about negotiation, it's about discussion, it's about presentation, it's about using different words. And as the developers of this game thought of themselves, at the end of every round, you can write a compelling haiku to compel the other people that it's actually a very good game. And this also enhances a bit of the play element in it. It's not all serious. It's also about, yeah, creative, open your mind and really try to see what we can do with some sort of an area. So if you look at what we design, like what does it do actually? Like how can we map it in the structure? And by no means this is the final version of the structure. We still have quite some time to develop it further. But this is what we have now. And it's this game, Redesire, is really about activation of different stakeholder groups, the interconnection between them. It's about raising awareness of the different desires that are in a certain area among different stakeholders, and also visualize their needs. And if you look at the co-creation part, which is very important for placemaking and participation, is the co-analysis of a certain area. Like how can it look? What are the different needs? Where are we going to go with this? And then the outcome is a big map of all the possibilities that you have and all the do's and don'ts if you work with different stakeholder groups. And that is like how the game is desired on itself, the purpose, the co-creation and its outcomes. And then we also have the play part. So the mechanics, the dynamics and the aesthetics. So it's a role play game. You're different stakeholders. You can do it like factually, like everyone who works for the municipality is part of the municipality, the citizens. But it's also really interesting to mix it up. It's not that you have to play with those different actors if you're from a certain field of work. You can also interconnect with them and to really step in each other's shoes and think about, okay, what could it do? What would it mean for me if I was a citizen in that area? In terms of dynamics, it's really about the digital interface and the analog tentaculum, that word I can't pronounce, sorry. The digital and the analog interface of it, because that is also a beautiful thing of what games could do. If you only make it digital, you lose really a big part of the negotiation, of the discussion, something that is crucial for placemaking. But by also making it digital, you collect data and you can upscale it to a bigger level. And I think that's combination between the two of them is one of the reasons I chose this project to tell you a bit more about. In terms of aesthetics, it's really about imagination and the assemblage of a good idea, how it could look like, and have then a discussion about it. And if you think about space, it's often about a neighborhood level. If you just do it on a street level, it has to be a very exciting street. There are some examples of them, but mostly it's played at a neighborhood level with different stakeholders, and it could be all of them. The one that you mentioned here, the community stakeholders, the planning experts, and the policymakers. And if the scope, it's medium high. And I think that's also important to have an idea about what it can do for you as an organization, because in the end, you want to play a game. If you're looking for a great example of a game which is for 80 people and you only have 10, then it's probably not the right fit for you. So this is sort of a big navigation map through the game to your needs. Other great example is the block by block. It's developed by UN Habitat. It's played all over the world from Kenya, Nepal, Vietnam, India. And what I really like about this game is that they didn't start from a planning perspective. They started with the game. And I hope that all the architects that are watching the below 20 know this, because it's an awesome game and the interface is so what they do is they build a skill level of the actual location. You can see that on the picture. The top one is a picture from Nepal, and on the bottom you see how they design it. So it actually is quite some real interconnectivity behind it. And then with a lot of kids, they start developing these areas, like making big changes. And this is a really easy way to sketch it digitally and then see how it would work out if you can combine it to real life. And of course, Minecraft is not a perfect game to draw your plan, but it's a big, great starting point in which everyone can collaborate because it's super easy. Kids from a year of 6 can play it already. And because of that, it makes it really a big sketching map in which you can have 30 people at once draw on the same map to draw their ideas and try to explain it. And this is really about how participation can be done through games for placemaking. So if we look at the map again, it's really about the collaboration and interconnection, and also educate, especially because you played with children, what are all the connections if you look at urban planning. Then the co-analysis and co-design. I think this is a perfect example of co-design of what a public space could look like. And in the end, you end up with a design and a big collection of knowledge of what the stakeholders that were involved in this process actually need. So in terms of mechanics, it's really about a simulation of what it could look like. And then if you look at the dynamics, it's a digital game that you could use for data collection. And in terms of aesthetics, it's about imagination. They're all blocks, so I wouldn't call it sensation, but about imagination and assemblage of a good design. On the skill level, well, having to imagine that you have to build an entire metropolitan in Minecraft, it's going to be daunting. And so I would say it's mostly about a neighborhood or street level. And you can use it, especially with the community, and planning experts and policymakers look at the designs from the community in backhand. And if you look at how big you can scale it up, like they played it with more than 50 people in one map, you can really scale it up and make it bigger. And I think this could very well be a very interesting step for the future of games in placemaking. So the big question is, what can games do for us in the future? Because what I just showed you are some state-of-the-art examples that we have now. But it's only going to get bigger because we're going to have more smartphones, we're going to be more digitally educated people. Also, the elderly from now is me. The elderly from the future is me. Like, I'm going to be able to work with a smartphone. I'm going to be able to use a computer. And this is something that grows bigger and bigger. And this is also the big question that I asked during a creative capacity building workshop in Breda to my students. Around 50 people participated, and this was one of the winning ideas. And it's really a combination, actually, of the two projects mentioned above. It's called Your Backyard, and it's about a planning process that municipalities could facilitate in their cities. So in the map, they pinpointed different locations in which they try to do implementations and changes. All the information can be found at that data location, could be used through a map, and people can look at the information about the reasoning, but also at the AR models that are there. So if you're there and you open the app on your smartphone, you can look at the building that they envisioned. But, and that's a connection to Minecraft, you can also try to design your own idea of it. And then after each round, people can vote on what are the best ideas, what are good solutions, and also can come with good examples on how to make it even better. And this is really about a way of sketching with the people together how a city could look like. And I think this is a very doable future, because if it's technical possible, we will do it. So this is a good example of try to envision how the future could look like. So for me, this also means that there's finally some data-driven urban planning and design. Because if you use with all those geolocations and have information about all those plans, you can evaluate all those patterns on which people like and what ideas people don't like. You can try to analyze it with an AI and to really make it like developing itself. Because if you look at if all the cities in the Netherlands do this, you can have more data and see, okay, this works very well in this sort of types of environments, and this doesn't work there. But Palermo, for example, could be very different, because here it's 13 degrees, in Palermo it's 39 degrees. So public space look very different at the moment. And I think that is something that is very interesting to think about as an urban planner, as an architect, also for municipalities. What can we do with this sort of using games for collecting data to improve our way of planning and architecture? So this is something I always like to do with my students. There are 3 things that I mainly want you to remember from this presentation. And the first one, there are many games out there. People are developing game at a huge pace. It's going faster every year. But if it does not feel like a game, it's probably not a game. So really think about the game elements and how you can implement them. Play with a purpose is a mighty combination, because if it's fun, people will continue working on it and do it in their spare times. And that is one of the best examples for participation. Make it fun and make it interesting at the same time, so you can really use that data. And I would like to like you to imagine the possibility of the marriage between games and urban planning and how this could translate to data. So we're going to have a Q&A after this. And one of the things I would like you to think about is, what would you like to know when searching for a placemaking game? And the reason that I put this question in is also to make our work better, to make it more suitable to your needs. So if you have ideas, please share it in the chat, and I would like to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you,
Nick, for your very interesting presentation. I would say that in the chat for the moment, there are not specific questions. You can also write questions later about this presentation.
Absolutely.
So now I would pass to the presentation of Davide Leone. So about the play in a...
We have a question.
Yes, we have a question.
From Luisa.
Okay. Allora, I don't know if you see it, Nick. The question is...
I can read the question for you, Chiara and Nick. It says from Luisa Fernanda, how can we apply games and tech to approach the challenges of understanding urban spatial segregation? If you would like to answer.
Very interesting question. So if you think about urban spatial segregation, so it's very important to define what segregation in this term means, because segregation, it could be of different purposes in urban planning system, could be of different groups of people in a system, could be about ethnic segregation in public space. Great, I can see the chat. So how can we apply games and tech to approach the challenges? So I think that games really work very well to see what the needs are of certain groups of people, and make it interesting to see, also to use the collaborative understanding of the participants, and in that way sort of a mapping system. And if you make it digital, you can collect data in a way that you could see what works there and what doesn't work somewhere else. And if you look at the segregation, there could be many actors triggering segregation. And if you design a game that is able to also identify the different ways of segregation, different reasons for segregation, you can also try to understand it better. And if you do that on a bigger scale and try to theorize it, you can make a theory of segregation based on actual data. So I think that could be a way in which games can really build up with data to understand segregation better. And I hope this answers your question.
Okay, yes. Can I make also another very short way to think about games, about segregation, because games are also a platform in which you can push people to do something that they don't want to do usually. So for instance, if you have a segregated part of a city that is not at all segregated physically, but a segregated part of the city because of its role inside the city, you can push people to visit this part of the city and to understand in which way is segregated, if it's true that is segregated, if you can push people to do something that is not usually made. And so people can really understand that a city is made of different parts, but maybe the one that we think that are segregated, you can go in, you can visit, and you can do something in that part of the city. So games are really interesting because you can make inside a game system things that usually you don't want to do. And it's the first day of another story. So for me, this is really another approach to think about games, not only to collect data, but also to push people to do something different.
Okay. I also see there's another question from Clara.
Yeah, it says, yeah, what practical scenarios or cases do you know from your experience that have used games for a particular purpose?
Yes, so the Redesire game I told you in this presentation about was actually developed by a company named Heijmans and funded by the company named Heijmans, and it has been tested many times in the Netherlands. So it has been used at 8 different locations. And it's always part of a process. So it's not about replacing the process, it's part of a process. And also in Breda, for example, we have this municipality have acquired an area in the center of the city, and they're also going to use games in October to try to map the different possibilities for that from different stakeholder groups. And there are many more applicable scenarios where games has been used for a particular purpose. How do you propose a game to a community? That's a very good question. That really depends on the game, of course, and its purpose. So if you play it with the Minecraft game, for example, one of the best ways to do it is to go to school or go to programs in a city that already work with children, because that's a very easy way to get children involved about thinking about a different area. But if you have more the Redesire scenario, like the game I told you before, you're not going to play it with children, so going to school there is probably not the best approach to get good quality people to think about the location. So a good strategy that can be used there is to really invite certain groups of people, like neighborhood associations, architecture companies, people from the municipality, if they would like to participate in it. If you think about an even bigger scale, about inviting an entire neighborhood, then it's an approach that we usually undertake. It could be to send them all a letter, like, we want to play a game, and it's going to be this sort of game with this sort of purpose. Really try to explain well what you try to do. Also explain that you try to make it fun, because it's really important that you not only try to collect something, but also to bring something to them and ask them to participate. So it's really about, mostly actually like the standard participation process, but think about who your group is and what the purpose of the game is, and then try to invite accordingly. Are there any other questions?
Okay, for the moment, it looks like that there are no other questions.
Yeah.
So we will pass to the presentation of Davide. And Nick, you should...
we have one last question, if we can answer it before we go with David, if you don't mind.
Okay,
it's from Malak. And it says, how can games be designed for post-occupancy?
The way to make from a space, a place, like a place where people want to come, is to have an activity there. So a way to do that is really think about games that facilitate some sort of activity, something that brings people there, to make it a lively area. I think games are an excellent example of how you could do that, because it's a really way to look at fun locations. And we saw it when Pokemon Go hit the cities. At a moment, there were big groups of people going all over the cities at locations they would never go because a certain Charizard was there, for example. This is a very easy way of think about how you can make a location more interesting with an extra layer over it.
Okay, Chiara, if you want, we can continue with the following presentation.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go to the following presentation, and then we will continue with the question and answer. And in case you have further questions for Nick, you can directly write that the question is for Nick in the chat.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Nick. It was really, really interesting. And thank you also because you gave a solid background, theoric background about the classification of games. So now I'm going to share my screen and to present. Okay, I hope that it will work. And now I have to do something like this. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I am Davide Leone from Palermo, from CLAC in Palermo. I am a PhD in urban planning. I work in several different universities, such as Palermo and Rome. I am member of CLAC, and I am the founder and the president of UGame, a society that makes a corporation that makes urban games. So urban games really connected to people and to the aim of this company is to make people game inside the city. So what we will talk about today? Well, we will talk about a drama that we had in this period. So to play in a city during a pandemic, for us, it was really a drama because from our point of view, it was not possible to make any games in the way we made the games because our games really need a lot of people to play, a lot of people to stay together. So we have three parts of this presentation. The one is the quarantine quest. So what changes during the quarantine period? The other one is about the open world games. So what are the open world games? And the third one, the end, that I hope it is a happy end. It's to play or not to play with the world. And it's how we force the situation to make another, a different environment for our games. So first of all, the quarantine quest for us, it was really a peculiar moment because normally we live in a physical world. It is what we call the real world. It's clear. The main function of this kind of space is to meet each other and to interact. We invent the city to augment the quantity and the quality of interaction. Agora for the Greek cities is a very big invention because it was a booster for interaction. And from the Agora to our times, we made a lot of invention inside the city to augment the capacity of the city of improve quantity, quality, and quality of interaction between people. But during the quarantine, these kind of things, the city outside the doors of our houses, there could be nothing. We don't need anything that was represented by the city itself. So during the COVID-19 era, we are inside our houses, and the only interaction space we have is the social networks and meeting platforms. Normally, there is a space out of the doors of our houses. During the quarantine, there could be nothing else. We don't need it. Okay, and it's really strange because in the meantime, it happens that during the quarantine, the interaction that was provided by the physical space of the cities is provided by other kind of infrastructures that are not natural. I cannot say in another way. It's the difference between a market center and an historic center of the city. It's quite the same thing. The platforms try to substitute the city, providing an interactive environment in which we live. Remembering McLuhan, it's clear that we are talking about a very complex media system that is really connected to our way of living. In the very first days of the quarantine, I felt really stupid because there was a lack of connection with other people. I cannot use the intelligence of other people to improve, to understand better what I think, to face my thoughts and so on. So it was really, really a drama, and I had a lot of people that have the same feelings about this situation. So it's clear we have a lot of games that we call open world games, are really huge games that act inside a so big world that it's an open world because it's not possible. The game itself, it's made to make impossible to explore all this kind of world. It's the case, for instance, of GTA, of Red Dead Redemption, but down to the page, you can see a lot of titles of this kind, and it's really interesting because it's to work inside in such these games is similar to really build a world that have to have his own meanings, his own system, and it's really fascinating. So the world is so huge that it's like a real world, and we can't really explore it completely. During the COVID emergency, we are in a very strange situation. The real world becomes a fantasy world because we cannot go outside and make the things that we usually don't. But fortunately, there is a complete simulation of the world. So this is a story that is our story that make you understand what we think to do with the world, to use the Google Earth infrastructures to make the environment of an open game, of an open world game, excuse me, and to play a game within the city. So we needed a platform that could act as an open world game, and we chose Google Earth to build in it a game experience. We are not the first one that we make something like that. There are some games that uses Google Earth as a platform for playing. But for us, it's really interesting because we were forced to use Google Earth during the COVID-19 emergency. And the other thing is that we try to use Google Earth in a way that no one tried to use. And for us, it's really interesting to explore these kind of things. So there are two ways proposed by Google itself to use Google Earth as a game platform. The first one is the Carmen San Diego Adventure. This is a very simple game in which we try to catch Carmen San Diego, trying to understand where she is going. But the game plot is based not on the geographic issues or on the 360 views that we can use inside Google Earth, but is based on some witnesses that we have to interrogate and to understand where Carmen San Diego is going, and we try to catch her. So it's really simple game, but it's not so interesting from my point of view. So the geography here is in the background. The other kind of games that Google itself proposed to us is the quiz. Well, they try to give us some questions about some topics. So for instance, here it was about the trains, and but here the geographic exploration is only used as a prize for the correct answers. So if we can, if we answer good, we have the, we will go to the place that is connected to that answer. But it's not really for our point of view, the game is not really connected to the game itself. So we made this kind of experience. This is a game developed by UGame and it's about, it works on Google Earth, and it uses Google Earth as an environment, and we have all the world at our disposal, so we can go everywhere, and we have a lot of images of this world. Pratica 799 is the game we developed, and is a narrative experience that suggests to the players a great level of interaction. The space we use in the game is the real one, but it's another kind of reality. It's not the real reality. Is the image of the world inside the simulation of Google Earth, but we are still playing inside the cities. So we use 360 degrees photo provided by Google Earth, and we put the player inside a crossroads story. To solve the games is in charge of the players. In the meanwhile, we provide quests about the space of the city itself. So we try to guide the players inside the city to make a tour of the city while they are inside their houses. But it's really interesting because during the pandemic, the real open world game is to play inside our cities. So here, for instance, we are inside, this is a true story. In the 1979, it was stolen a big painting by Caravaggio, that is a nativity that you can see in this church, but this is a copy. And we try to solve this kind of mystery. And we go around in the city to using the city itself as as in an adventure game. So we try to make visible to the players some details that usually they don't see, they don't note, and so on. So here, this is another part of the game. Here we have something, a quest for the players that they have to solve to understand the end of the game. So this is the end of my presentation, but it's really an important question for me, because in the end, this is Palermo, but it is the image of Palermo. I cannot go outside of my house for 2 months, and maybe it will be a situation that can occur once again, but maybe this is not a city. The virtual one, it could be not considered a city, but are we sure that we cannot consider it as a city? And it's really, really important for me to answer this kind of question, because to interact from physical space and for digital space, it's really important. It's not only a question about augmented reality, it's a question about mixing the experience. So we have to try to mix digital world to real world, but during the COVID-19 era, physical world, there wasn't. So we had only digital world, and we have to arrange ourselves to play inside the city in this digital environment that it's true, but it's also fake. So that's all. I hope that there is some questions about the presentation. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Davide. So now it's a turn for the questions and answers. I see that there's one coming from Malak, and I will read for you. This is quite an interesting perspective on how the actual city has become this fantastical world that has been gone out of reach. But my question is about the embodied nature of our experience. So by removing that physical element, how do you see the impact of the completely digital urban games?
Okay, well, it's really, really interesting, and it's clear that we are in a situation very peculiar. That's because we are in a situation in which we cannot go outside of our houses. But it's really, really interesting for me to use this kind of urban games to help people to explore the city from other perspectives. Using this kind of games, I can give a story that is connected to a game experience, a story that can act in Palermo, and you can see the real Palermo, the real Palermo staying in Barcelona or in Breda or in some other cities. And it's really, really interesting. It's really powerful. But from my side, from my point of view, it's also, well, we really need to have a moment in which we can go once again in the city as a physical place. But from my side, from my point of view, it's also.
Okay, the other attendees, remember that you are also more than welcome to raise your hand if you want to speak live. So you can either write your question in the Q&A section or either raise your hand and I will give you the floor to talk in person with the panelists. We can wait a little bit. Maybe in the meantime, I see that there was another question that I think it was intended for Nick. In the meantime, other questions come up. If you want maybe to answer that, is about which software, and of course it's open to the other panelists, but maybe Nick can start. Which software do you suggest to learn to create an urban game, to collect data, or to propose the scenarios?
Yes, that's a very good question. I think it starts first with the purpose of the game. The first game that we desire, basically you can already do it with Excel, for example, or some lines with code. But a game like Minecraft, it's a lot bigger and a lot more complicated. So there's not one good answer for the go-to software to solve this. Although it is very interesting to have that kind of software because it just isn't here yet, as far as my knowledge reaches. So I really think there's a huge opportunity in that, but it's not there at the moment.
Okay, well, maybe can I answer about what we made inside the Pratica 799 game to make some analysis, because you can understand if all the game works inside Google Earth, it's not possible to make any analysis because Google Earth cannot provide you an accounting system and so on. But what we used is a mixed situation in which in some part of the game you go inside the Google form to catch some information from the player, so it's really simple. But from other using other technologies, that it's really simple. Here we use some link that are connected to a short link shortener, so we can understand in which part of the game people are inside the game. So because it's clear, all the part of the games are made of hyperlink between one part and another. If we can understand where the player is, it's possible to understand when he stopped itself and so on. However, for us, it was really simple in this kind of game to integrate Google Forms and URL shortener to understand something about the players. Not everything, but something, yes.
Okay, thank you, Davide. So I think we don't have so far any other question coming up now. We can leave, of course, open the section of Q&A and maybe see later on. If you want, we can give the floor now to Marco for his presentation on SuperBarrio. Marco?
Yeah. Thank you very much, Raquel. Good afternoon to everyone. It's indeed a pleasure to see such a big participation today. So let me first introduce myself. I'm Marco Garcia. I'm an Italian architect and urbanist, and I'm working at IAAC Barcelona, at the Institute for Advanced Architecture, as academic coordinator, and also been faculty in the Master in City and Technology. So today I'm going to have the pleasure to share with you the experience related to a project we started to develop 3 years ago. And it's a project called SuperBarrio. SuperBarrio, maybe some of you already know it. It's a urban game that we have developed at the Master in City and Technology for the city of Barcelona, and that afterwards started to develop and be applied in other cities. So I'm going to share a presentation, a very fast one, just to give you an idea of the project, and then I'm going to start to show you the demo from the tablet. So I would like to remind you that, as you can see in the website, it is possible to download SuperBarrio directly from Google Play. So in case you want, you can go to the website and find the link, or directly look for it in Google Play. So I hope you can see. Yes, apparently you can. So SuperBarrio, it's a tablet game. It's a game for tablet or smartphone, and it's a tool that uses gamification strategies to engage the citizens in the design of the public space. It is an open source online tool, so SuperBarrio objective is to widen the potential audience of participatory design processes, with the objective of overcoming the limit of those conventional methodologies. So it's working exactly in that framework that we have been talking about. SuperBarrio, we are now talking about this also because it's one of the best practices for the general catalog that we are building together with our partners. So this, as I was saying before, this tool was first developed in Barcelona as a pilot project in the context of the Superblock, of the Superilla, and then it was developed and implemented in 5 different cities. So Favara in Sicily, Genova in Italy, Porto, Nantes, and Sofia. I will show you later. So as I was saying, this tool was developed in the context of the Master in Scene and Technology. The Master in Scene Technology is a master that we held at IAAC Barcelona in Poblenou, and with a group of international students every year. And this is exactly the context where we developed this project together with students that are at the same time working on data visualization tools, AI, blockchain technologies, in order to understand how can we change the way how we approach cities thanks to digital technologies. So talking about the project of SuperBarrio, this tool, SuperBarrio, as I was saying, is a tool that uses gamification strategies. So no, it's not exactly a game, with the objective of engage the citizens in the design of the public space. As you can see here, we are in the context of the Superblock. I will show you now. So what are the features of this tool? It's a tool that works for, first of all, for architects, urban planners, and public entities. This is the target. And the objective is to be offered to these entities as a tool to engage the citizens in the design of the public space, generating a process of education and creation of awareness in the citizens, communicating urban plans, but at the same time, being able to collect data about the user's behavior and about the user's desire, in case they want to share it with us, obviously. So their methodology is based on the idea that all the citizens and the players that play with this technology can design the public space, can develop a proposal for the empty public space, and using different modules related to different categories: culture, ecology, energy, and mobility. Here you can see the different modules that we have developed for the application for the first one in Barcelona. Let's talk a bit about the context. So the context is the context of the Superblock. So some of you, those of you who are from Barcelona, for sure know very well the project of the Superblock. Probably also some of you that are connected from other cities in Spain and in Europe, or international cities. This is a project that was developed in the area where IAAC is located. This is more or less here is IAAC, and this is the Superblock. It's a project that wants to radically transform the configuration of the city and its mobility, closing part of the streets, as you can see here, I guess, yes, you can see my mouse, closing part of the streets in order to gain more pedestrian areas and have an optimized circulation in the peripheric streets. The internal part of this block that becomes a super block is therefore a pedestrian area with a very limited access for cars related to goods and also local citizens, neighbors. So this is the configuration of the city proposed by the Superblock, with a very strong objective of reducing air pollution, which is causing in Barcelona premature death in a very high way, of course, and also very severe health issues in general. So what to do with 60% of more space, first question, but also how can we be able to engage the citizens in this process if we have this new public space? And this is exactly the context. In the moment, those from Barcelona probably know it, in the moment in which this project was started to be implemented in the first pilot area, there was 3 years ago, there was a very differentiated reaction from the public. On the one hand, you can see that spontaneously different citizens worked together in order to support the project, and others were against the project. Also because some of them felt that they were not involved. You can see here, als veïns volem decidir. So citizens, the neighbors, we want to decide. So how can we engage the citizens in the process? This is the idea of SuperBarrio. Start to talk to the citizen, giving to the citizens a more active role in the design of the public space, as a bit also we've been speaking about before, and using gaming technologies and a playful approach in order to engage them into the process, but also to push them also to work. So first of all, how can I get SuperBarrio? SuperBarrio can be downloaded from the Google Play Store, and this is exactly the screenshot. You can see that it can be downloaded on every Android tablet at the moment. And once it is downloaded, we ask the participants, the players, to insert their personal data. As you can see here, once they start to play, they have the possibility, as I was saying before, to locate the different modules in the public space. So the players can select the modules and place them in this space according to this menu that you can see here. I will show you from the demo. What is the impact? Each module belongs to a category, as you can see here. For instance, this is a basketball court and belongs also to the culture, because we believe that can also foster interaction. And every time that it is placed, it will have an impact also on the other categories, with generating a score, which can be negative or positive. The more the players play, the more they have an impact on these counters. You can see the different colors. So the counters measure the interaction between these modules to develop a balanced urban design. This is the challenge of the game: create a balanced urban design or a balanced proposal, bring and push the citizens, the player who wants to engage himself in the process, to develop a proposal that is also addressing the need of a wider community, and therefore this objective of being balanced. And in case they are able to do so, they will receive different awards: a bronze, a silver, and a gold medal, according to the amount of modules that they are able to place, and also according to the fact that this is balanced proposal or it is not. How did we start to work with that? So we have, first of all, a non-site test. This is something that we made 3 years ago, and we counted on the fantastic support of the local community of Superblock that, as I was saying before, also started to grow at the moment in which this project of Superblock was implemented. They worked with us and we played with them in this area. It was also used by different citizens, and you can see, of course, some pictures of this. This is what happened. We were able to collect data from the different plays, from the different games. In just 3 hours, we had 75 players that placed all these modules. You can see all of them in this visual representation. And out of this data, that is geolocated data, so it's related to the space itself, we are able to understand specific patterns that emerge in the territory. So what are the areas of bigger interest? And what kind of categories do the players, the citizens, want to have in certain areas? You can see that in the Superblock, they started to work mainly in the squares, ignoring some of the streets. So what is this related to? How can we use this data? Can this data inform an urban design and an implementation proposal? But at the same time, is it possible to filter this data? We have developed with SuperBarrio a dashboard that's allowing whoever wants to have access to the data to filter this data and understand how different categories are present in different areas. We can start, therefore, to work with this content. We can start to work with this data and start to understand what kind of desires and what kind of needs citizens can have. Of course, it's important to reach a broad audience in order to ensure that this data is meaningful, but this is something that we plan to work with inside specific participatory processes. So where to play? How can we spread these novel methodologies, and how have we tested it? As I was saying before, we did it already in the public space as a first test, but we continued, and I'm happy to show this also inside schools. So we have played with different children's and have shown the project to children's in the schools of the district. who actually were quite happy to play with that. And I have to say that also changed their mind while playing with the games, understanding different potential of the neighborhood. Schools, so engaging citizens and children who are many times not able to be involved in similar processes, but at the same time work again in the public space. We continue to bring this project in the public space, again, the Superblock itself, because it was also a good tool to attract not only residents, but also users of the area that are reaching Superblock only during the days, which in a context such as Barcelona, that it's characterized by such a big variety of users, it's also a very important aspect. But also at home, this is another picture that it's related to this, but of course, being able to download the game in your tablet, as you can do already now, and I hope that some of you have done it from the attendees, you can play at home and you can start to share your opinion, produce your project, make your project proposal, and share it with a wider community. So this is the project that I will show you now. I just want to briefly introduce the topic of the multiplication. It's a bit something that we always, is very important for us at IAAC. We always work with the idea of developing pilot projects that can be tested in a real scale, Barcelona project, and then work with these and further developed in further iteration in other contexts. And this is what we have done. I've shown you this before. We brought it to CCD, we brought it to Genova, and also to Nantes, and we are going to bring it to Porto and Sofia. The idea in this iteration is to further work on the project, understand how different contexts and different society and different communities can shape the project also in a different way and bring us to different design decisions. And for instance, we applied it in Genova in a context of old barracks that were going to be destroyed, partially destroyed, in order to create an urban park in the city of Genova, in which we work with the local community that it's actually creating also crowdsourced community areas in the same area. In Favara, only with children, we entirely adapted it for children that were going to work, as I hope you can see here, in a specific square of the city, the only pedestrian area of this small town. So how can also only a target of children can help us to develop the project? And then the SuperBarrio Urbinat project. What is Urbinat? Urbinat, it's a European project in which we are further developing the SuperBarrio, that it's financed by the European Commission as an Horizon 2020, and is developed in these 3 different cities. The general objective of the project is to work on the implementation of green corridors in evicted areas in European cities. And the tool of SuperBarrio is used inside so-called living labs in order to engage the citizens in making their own design for these green corridors. So how can they use SuperBarrio with different modules, such as that include also nature-based solutions, in order to design their own district and bring in this way also their content, their desires, themselves, and strengthen the community. So this is the last slide of this presentation. I hope that it was not too long. Now I'm going to share the tablet of SuperBarrio so that I can show you a bit, and then if you have any questions, we'll be more than happy to answer. So I will, sorry, and now it's kind of technical direction. I will stop sharing here. Okay, so this is the simple, this is my tablet, as you can see. So this is SuperBarrio. So the first screen that the users can see, each one of you, of course, as I was saying, can download it from Google Play, is the possibility to start an old session, so go back to a previous design strategy, or start a new one. Let's start from a new one. In this case, we ask to the players to insert their data. Why? As I was saying before, it's very important also to have the possibility to filter the data that is afterwards collected. So we ask to put the name. As you can see, is Marco, my age, which unfortunately I cannot fake, as I was saying before. Okay, and the gender. The gender, it's something that in the second iteration we have removed in order to be even more inclusive and let the people ignore this part. So this is what a user sees in the app. You can see that it is possible, and this is the real innovation of this project, to navigate the public space and in general the neighborhood of the superblock in 3D. So this is something that, as you can see, has been recreated in a virtual environment. You can recognize the Mediatek building, you can recognize Can Ricard and many other buildings. This is also the central block in which a new park has been created. So in the moment in which we implemented this project, the public space was completely empty. And therefore, we were offering to the citizens the possibility to insert their project. Let's say that we have this square. I'm now going to click here on the one of the menu in order to open the different modules. Now you cannot see it, but if I move it, okay, so I can see all the different modules, and I can also understand their impact on different categories. So this is a library, for example, or this is a public barbecue or a basketball court, etc., or a public gym. How can this public gym have an impact on the different condition of the district? So it doesn't have only a positive one. So it has a positive one on the community and a positive also on the ecology itself, on the environmental condition, because it's also producing, in this case, energy with the dynamo. And you can also see that it has a negative impact. So it is going, of course, to reduce the possibility of mobility in the district. Let's place it. I'm going to take it. As you can see that it appears here in the public space. Let's say that I want to locate it here. Now, you've seen that somehow, of course, a bit, the balance is changing. So I have more culture, less mobility. Okay, how can I implement mobility? I click on the red menu, and I have the possibility to place different car parking, bike parking, patinette station that can be rented, and a permeable square, which is a square that also is related to mobility, but it's reducing urban permeability. It's increasing urban permeability. Or also different elements such a bench. It is possible to place the bike parking, and you can see how the impact is changing. Perfect. So while playing, I can see that the more I've played, the more I'm able to receive an award. Why? Because it's really important to use these gamification strategies to engage the citizens in the play itself. So gamification is something that all of us are also experiencing in every kind of application, from Candy Crush to also our phone application that with notification are kind of engaging ourselves. In this case, the small award has this specific objective, also informing the player that everything is going fine. It is possible, therefore, to place many other elements, such as a floor that, for instance, it's able to produce electricity, wind turbine, etc. So you can imagine that at the moment in which I will have to decide as a citizen between a food market, that I don't know why it's so big, sorry. Okay, this is the correct one. If I have to decide between a food market or a car park in a context of a limited place, I will start to understand that my egoistic decision about probably my need of parking my car in front of my house can be confronted also and with the general needs of the community to have spaces for interaction. But at the same time, I will also have the possibility to understand that that car park is going to have a negative impact, as I can see here. And this is a bit the idea. Being based the game on this kind of logic, negative and positive impact, and a balance between them, it is therefore possible to have a better and a project that it's more inclusive and able to represent also the need of other elements of our society. I want to make just another example on the other side. Let's say that I don't want car parking. because I just want trees in the public space or a park. Thanks to the game, I will have the possibility to understand that if I place only trees, I will not have enough, to make an example, I will not have enough mobility. So this means that there are some elements and some components of our community, such as elderly people, that might also need specifically to have some car parking or an access that otherwise cannot be granted. And this is just set to show how we have this possibility thanks to the game. Now, I just want to show you again the context a bit. And then if you have any questions already, I'm more than happy to answer to your questions.
Thank you so much, Marcos. It was super interesting and very clear presentation. I see that we have one hand raised and another question. Maybe we can go for the written question, and when we give the floor to the attendee who raised the hand. The first question it's from Karim and asks, how are scores values assigned to each game component? And what drives the definition of a balanced urban design? Does balance look different depending on the specific context of the play area?
That's a very good question. Thanks, Karim. And so first of all, these score and values have been assigned based on a series of interviews and collaboration with experts in the field of urbanism. First of all, of course, our team, but also sociologists and other experts that have helped us also to inform this logic. And the balance is related to a complex algorithm that is able to process all these components. So obviously, this is the key aspects of a similar game, because it's the moment in which we are defining and we are making an evaluation of a different project, of different projects. So this is part of what has been also further implemented in the other, in the second, third, fifth and sixth iteration of the projects, such as the Urbinet one. In this case, also the balance has been strongly related to the context of these evicted areas. So it is possible to play with the components and the modules in order to ensure that it's really representative and is giving a meaningful representation. Something that I would like to highlight on this is that the logic of the balance, it's also able to address that objective of the game related to education and sharing, in any case, creating awareness. Let's always keep in mind that we are not developing a final it is not possible to develop a final project for the city. The objective is to let citizens learn about the process of urbanism, understand how to be engaged in the process and understand all the details and the impact of certain decisions. And in this way also offer to represent a tool that is useful also for public authorities, basically. I hope I answered the question, but I'm more than happy also if Karim wants to take the microphone and further interact. This is a possibility of the webinar, so you can raise your hand at any moment if you want.
Yeah, actually we have Malak, so I'm going to give the floor. 1 second.
Nice.
Okay. Malak, can you?
Yes, I can hear you. So,
Perfect.
So my question is like, you partially answered my question, because it's like about what do you do after this gamification of urban strategies. So it's partially about the awareness of the community regarding urban interventions, but what do you do with the data that you collect, and how does it reflect in the actual design of the superblock?
So in the specific case, thanks for your question, first of all. And where are you? Can I ask you also, where are you talking from, connected from?
I'm actually in Barcelona right now.
Nice.
And that's why, because I mean, like, I've actually been to the to the district a lot of times during the morning, during the night, during the Loom Festival and so on. So I can see how it's quite different from the rest of the urban fabric of Barcelona. So I was actually interested in how this data collection was affecting the actual design.
Yeah, thanks. So in the specific case of the super block of Barcelona, this pilot project, because in Barcelona then other have been implemented since then, the data was just this was the pilot project. So the data that we have collected, of course, we have also shared, but it is not implemented inside a longer participation process that therefore can ensure such a big participation and a strong quality of the data that is collected. So in the case of the Superblock of Barcelona, the process of implementation of the entire urban furniture was very fast. I don't know if you were here 3 years ago when they started, but it was very fast, and based on strategic urbanism strategies. Sorry for the repetition. So pots or painting in the street. So it was not engaged the community in a process of design at that stage. And this is also why we have developed SuperBarrio. Then this data has been offered to the community, but still it was not implemented on such a scale in order to be really applied. In the context of the Urbinat project, which is kind of really different, we are developing it, offering this data to the community and to the project itself, because maybe Chiara, correct me if I'm wrong, in these green corridors and in the living lab that we are implementing, the data it's used inside a specific participatory process. So it has more value in terms of data collection, and also is working better, which is something normal with projects that are constantly developed according to different scenarios and case studies every time. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, you did. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Exactly. In the specific case of Urbinat, people have to co-select some objects, or in that case are nature-based solutions, so solutions for the city based on nature, from a catalog. So in that case, we were presenting between the solutions that are coming from the catalog. People are dragging the solution from the catalog. And in this way, we collect data about which are the solutions that people want to implement.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So we have another question in the Q&A section. It's coming from Luisa Fernanda Pinto, and she's asking how to bring the community closer to this kind of urban gamification while avoiding widening the technological and social gap in these participatory processes.
Thank you, Fernanda or Luisa. I don't know if you are also would like to open your micro and also tell us from where you're connected from. Otherwise, of course, we can also proceed. So that's also a very, very important question, the social and technological gap. First of all, the idea of a technological gap has been crucial in the development of SuperBarrio. That's why also a tool such as a very simple tablet application that can be used on tablet that can be rented by the same public authority and community managers in order to be used in specific moments, it can represent a very useful tool. Also, the gap itself can be overcome thanks to facilitators. In the moment in which we have implemented and tested the project, it was very useful for specific sections of our local community. So for elderly people, it was fundamental. And also for children, it was, while for children, it was completely not needed. So absolutely, this is an element. So a facilitator can help in the process. Again, we can imagine different scenarios for the application, and this can allow a better engagement of the community. One can be to, these or other projects, well, of course, not only SuperBarrio. This can be something that it's also directed by the public authorities, or who is developing an urban project, urban design strategy for the district. So we can imagine that it can be used in a participatory process in specific moments, inviting the community, or inside the same schools. And in this context, a facilitator can be present. The other point about the technological gap is the tutorials. This seems something that, of course, you had me in this moment showing you how the tablet works, the SuperBarrio Barcelona works. In the further iteration, we have also implemented more description and more explanation. You can see here now in the upper part that there is an explanation, no? In the SuperBarrio Urbinat, this has been even further implemented. So this is also helping. I hope I answered to your question.
Thank you, Marco. I don't see more questions coming. Feel free. We have a raised hand. I'm going to give the floor now to Simone. 1 second. Okay, here you go.
Okay.
Okay. Hi, I'm Simone. I'm from Catania.
Ciao Simone, piacere.
Oh. Yes, I will be part of your master in city and technology the next year, and I knew this master when I saw this game on SuperBarrio, because I have an association and we was looking to a tool to engage the people in our process, but was very, very difficult. And my question was about the place of these elements in this area, because in according to what the people go to place the elements in this area, because if for example if I'm not of this area, I don't know how it's work, what it need. So in according to what someone that is not from there can understand what they have to place, how it's work.
Well, Simone, thank you for your question. And actually, I'm very happy about this question, because it allows me to touch a topic that I was talking about before, but I can go deeper into. And so I'm even more happy to welcome you next year in the Master in Data Technology. So this is crucial in the moment in which we have to enhance accessibility and ensure that a wider community can work with this game. So I was talking about description and tutorial explanation. This is something that will be implemented in the next phases of the Urbinat SuperBarrio, in order to give more description, to ensure that it's explained also how specific buildings are used, and also have the possibility to filter the visualization and visualize also specific data regarding the building. Let's say that, for instance, I have a building on which I can create a green facade, just to make a very simple example, and thanks to, or I can decide if that building, being in an evicted area and being damaged, can be destroyed. For instance, I can have information on the light of the solar energy production potential of that building, and therefore decide if it's good to place photovoltaic panels or a green facade that can also produce energy or not. So informing design and the decision-making process can also be possible, even more thanks to the tool. And actually, your question is very well done, because it's something that we are working on.
Okay, thank you.
I hope I answered to your question, but if you have others, I'm more than happy to continue.
Yes, because I thought that when I was gaming, that if there was like a data set that changed when I place, for example, A3. For example, if I place A3, what is the consequence in terms of air, or for example, in or other choices?
Okay, so if I properly understood your question, it's also touching another topic. So how can I have more information about what are other citizens doing and how can I interact with that? So if this is, correct me if I've not properly understood the question, please.
It was what is the consequence about my decision in when I place something in this area, for example, just
Yes.
to tell me.
So it's the game mechanic itself that it's informing you on the impact of your decision. So it's an overall evaluation that is given according to the score that you can have. And as I was saying before, it's also the most important thing is to explain to you as a player how visually your proposal is behaving, and also receive an information layer about that impact. So this is also something that on another level, which is the community level, can be also better understood thanks to the data visualization dashboard.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Simone. I see we have another question from Malak. Let me give the floor. Here we go.
Hi, so I have another question regarding what do you see like the changes that the SuperBarrio model would have to go through, especially in light of the pandemic, the lockdown, and the social distancing?
That's a lovely question, and indeed, it's very, very important. I think that being a platform, it's also, I mean, and an open system that it's accessible also to further changes and can be shared also to different communities to further change it. There is for sure the possibility to include a layer of information about this. Just make an example. I would like to make an example that I'm thinking about right now. Social distancing, which is one of the key elements. Imagine that in the displacing different benches, you could inform the player, which is also citizens, about the impact of certain decision that maybe is not ensuring social distancing. But this is a very simple aspect. Another one could be related to an evolutionary idea of the public spaces that can allow me, for instance, to visualize different scenarios. Thanks to the game, as a normal citizen, I can play something that develop a design proposal with modules that I can imagine that can stay only until the moment in which maybe a vaccine will be accessible, and therefore the public space can change. We are used to think about urban system and urban design that cannot change through time. So this can change through months, but also over the days. One of the key aspects, I think, also in relation to the public space and the way how we navigate today, so the problems of crowds, for instance, could be overcome thanks to tools can also allow us to decide different moments for different components of society to inhabit that space. So if now we have a problem of a big crowd, we can imagine the space is active in certain hours for certain elements of the components of the society or not. And the game itself could host similar features thanks to the time.
Yeah, because what was quite interesting from my observations, like in the allowed hours where we are allowed to go outside, the people are actually using the public space differently. They're even developing ownership to the street, where like people have this tendency to walk on the street itself, not the pavement, because of this sense of freedom, or like maybe I don't know, for more social distancing, because of the pavements are not that wide enough for the amount of people out there. So it's quite interesting how actually people are changing now their minds and how they use the public space. So that would be interesting to see how that is reflected in the design of the game itself as well now.
So certainly, that's totally true. I mean, I'm also super interested into this because I'm every time also seeing that here in Barcelona at 8 o'clock is the time when it is possible to go out for the adult people. And you can see that a crowd suddenly occupies the street, the car area.
Exactly.
So you probably have seen the same.
Exactly.
And, it's absolutely one of the elements of the game. So we can define in the game itself, in the moment in which we develop it, even in one afternoon, it is possible to change it in the SuperBarrio Barcelona itself, it's in Unity, that the area where, for instance, it is possible to locate a certain module can change. So it's not only the pedestrianized area, but the car area. And in this car area, you can imagine that only specific modules related to a temporary occupation can be placed. So module that, for instance, you cannot place a bench that is static, but you can imagine other kind of systems, other kind of elements that are more evolutionary and temporary. So the tool allows all the possibilities, and that's why also we have had the possibility to, sorry for the repetition, to implement it in 5 different contexts.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah,
so this is what I'm imagining in this simple way. What is great is that it is possible to even organize a workshop and further talk about it and make it happen, because it's quite easy actually in Unity itself, or how it is done.
Exactly. That would be quite interesting to see how the status quo it's actually changing how we think about the public space in general, not just as designers or architects, but also as users.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for the question.
Maybe we can give the floor to other panelists who may want to also contribute.
Yeah, I would like to elaborate on that.
Sure.
You described at the moment you see a lot of people just walking on the roads instead of the pavements. It really shows how much space cars take up in the city. And if you lock people up in their houses and they don't have any access to being outside, they feel more attached to the outside in their neighborhood. So it could also be used as a great starting position to use the SuperBarrio App. Imagine if there aren't any cars, or such a percent less cars in this area. What would you do with the space? And that is something that we see, I think, all over Europe, that it changes mobility in such a drastic way and shows how much space we actually have in cities.
Yeah, I totally agree. This is out. By the way, the Barcelona Council has already started to reduce the car area in many streets, but also many other cities in Europe are doing it. But Barcelona started just simply painting in yellow half of the car path, and then showing therefore that this area is only for bikes. Then the question is, how can we engage even more the citizens, even more in a moment in which a physical meeting and a gathering is impossible? So that's why this is a simple first idea of how digital technologies can really offer a tool to answer to this.
Yeah. And people also get used to other modes of transportation because they don't have to take the car every day to go to work. Then they feel they are also less busy. So you see that people really look towards the bike, also not only as a form of mobility, as most people do it here in the Netherlands, but also as a form of recreation. I think that is one of the most interesting parts of this whole pandemic in terms of urban planning, that it really changes, it shows us what is possible to do in the city with all the space that we have.
If I may jump in, just to share something that I was thinking about, especially with the pandemic and especially with the focus on the use of public space, as you are discussing now, I think that one of the main, let's say, weaknesses of government response to the pandemic was to take the simple road of locking down public spaces, canceling them as part of our daily life. And I wonder, and we are also working on a couple of projects on that topic at IAAC and the MACT this year, but how come we haven't thought that public space can also be used in a more dynamic way based on a time base that could be offered to certain citizens, you know, like 2 square meters per person that has, I don't know, 1 or 2 hours per week just for them. Being able to somehow understand that the planning of public space and the use of public space is not just a black and white scenario, whereas we use them in a crowded and uncontrolled way, or we don't use them at all, but somehow can be an intermediate way, and technologies can help us to do that because they can give us optimized ways of how to do that based on the amount of residents in the area, based on the square meter per habitat that is data that we have, and we can make an analysis of how many square meters of public space correspond to its habitat. And if we divide that into certain hours of the day and the week, then we have a much more dynamic use of public space. And I think that this is a big question on how we manage, not only how we design, but also how we manage public space and how we allow people to participate in these decisions of management in a more bottom-up way.
Yeah, you can, even the current light of Corona apps that I think pretty much every government in the world is talking about right now. You could use public space almost as a reward system, like people who really take their distance, get more time in this sort of public space. And then you really have some active rewards for good Corona behavior.
Absolutely. Yeah, Malak is also writing in the chat that it's interesting how the perspective to public transportation has changed. I don't know if you want to come to the stage, Malak, again. Instead of me reading the question, might be even better. Raquel, do you think we can give
Yeah, I just gave up.
Nice. Hello, Malak.
Like building on your conversation right now, it's also quite interesting, like the changes of not just to the public space, also public transportation. Before, especially here in Barcelona, for example, it was the easiest way of going somewhere, like just take the metro, the bus. But now people think twice before using the public transportation and actually prefer either cycling or walking, which was something like not very like favorable as now. So it's like another level of change is actually how we move in the urban space as well. So it's just a note on what you were saying before.
Yeah, I totally agree that there are a lot of standards that they are at stake, and therefore, I mean, it is important to start thinking what kind of these changes we want to continue keeping as part of our urban environment and our lifestyle, and which ones we can learn from in order to change the way that the urban is being planned and managed. I think that the fact of not using public transportation is not maybe the best scenario. I mean, if we think the necessity of people moving and commuting to their work or to services in the city, this is a fundamental aspect to reduce car. But on the other hand, if we manage to have a city that it is planned in a way that all services, or at least fundamental services, are within walking distance, then, you know, like the whole idea of public transportation is also taking another dimension in terms of the amount of use that we're giving it now.
Yeah, that's true. It's like, it's balancing the necessary versus like the responsibility towards not just the community, but the environment as well. So it's quite a challenge for the future planning. So we'll see how it goes.
Nice.
Okay, can I say something about SuperBarrio? That was because what I think the real limit of SuperBarrio is a super effective educational machine. I mean that you can use SuperBarrio to make people more capable to understand that you have limited resources. If you make a choose, something happens, and you cannot have everything. But there is another point that for me is really critical of SuperBarrio. And this point are the boundaries. I mean that when we talk about urban planning, we think about systems. We think that it's not the same thing is if near to my boundaries there is an hospital or if there is a factory. Is quite different things. So it's really not so much educational stuff to have really strict margins, and over these margins there is nothing else, because it's not so true that the neighborhood, what happens over the other I don't know the name in the super block, okay, near to the other super block, it's not the same. And this is the real limit I see in SuperBarrio, that maybe, I don't know how it's possible to manage this kind of stuff. But from this point of view, it's more similar to an architectural approach rather than to a urban planning approach. Because in the end, you work on a project more than on a plan. And it's really difficult to make people, to make this understandable for the people.
Thank you. Can I jump on this? I think it's a very important topic what you are touching now. In the case of the SuperIA, we decided to work with that specific area with this also representation. First of all, with basically for the fact that in that specific context, it is really working as an island. So Superblock, and SuperIA is exactly that. The moment in which the decision was to close completely the peripheral street, the central street, and just leave a peripheric circulation, that was also useful. Of course, in all the other projects that we have done, we have worked with, so in the 5 other iteration, we have worked with a wider context. I can also share some of them again in some moments if you want. So the SuperBarrio Nantes, and exactly for what you are talking about. If I can jump on that also, take advantage of this. In the data representation, the data collection and visualization that we have been working on also, we have developed the possibility also to create different layers in this representation. So there is the data about what the citizens desire, but also data regarding mobility, that it's something, and public transportation or goods and the resources circulation inside the city, and also data about public buildings that are in the area itself, which can also, and the surrounding, which are attractors and generator of users' mobility and behavior. So we are absolutely worked on that, and I totally agree that it's a fundamental element. So, as I was saying before, if you want, I can also show you the SuperBarrio Nantes, but I don't want to cut the conversation. So Raquel Areti, also you will tell me.
Marco, if you want quickly to show it, I will, in the meantime, answer maybe to the last question that we received on Facebook, and then we will need to close the session as we are slightly late. So just 1 second that I get the question from Facebook, that is from Karen. Congratulations, I have a question. How can we approach this kind of participative tools to people who are not familiar with digital tools, such older people? So I can quickly answer with the example of what we are doing in Urbinat, that is the project that Marco is showing, where we have a very strong participatory approach to the project, to the development of new public space. And in that case, we have several kinds of tools for participation. So not all of them are targeting the same target group. So SuperBarrio, in this case, is mainly targeted at a younger target group. But in any case, each time that we organize the participatory process, we have a moderator or a guide that is helping the people to use and teach to all the people that are part of the process how to use the tool, and in case support people to use it and to create the public space they wish through the SuperBarrio. So I hope I was exhaustive. I don't know if we have any other question. It looks like no. So yes, as we were saying here in the SuperBarrio, in this version of SuperBarrio for the Urban Arts project, we have a slightly different graphic. We have all the elements that are part of a catalog of solutions that are the solutions that were developed by the partners. And the participants to the process can drag the solutions within the selected area, that is the project area, creating the, let's say, the configuration that they prefer. We are collecting the data in order to extract a logic in the that will help us to the creation, for the creation of the project. So, yes, I think that it's 6. We are not receiving any further questions. There is a question.
Yeah.
We will have to answer very soon, I think, because we will have to close, but let's not miss this opportunity.
Okay, just these two questions, and then we will close the session.
So are the question and answers. So I appreciate this discussion tremendously. I'm listening from Portland, Oregon, and we are just now seeing the establishment of a smart city program in our local government. One thing I am wondering is how we can incorporate economic and political factors at play in our urban development system. How can we enable players, such as residents, to learn how developer influence would impact the feasibility of their gameplay? I don't know who wants to take this answer, because it's a very complex one. To answer very brief, it's not as easy.
I think I can answer it.
Nice.
There are different ways of games. Like you have educational games, you have role-playing games, and you have design games. And I think all have different ways of looking at it. Role-playing games, for example, are really good at showing different players, residents, how different actors look at it. What are the different objectives that have to be met by different stakeholders? And therefore, role-playing games could really work well for those. And as you see, Auto Redesire that I talked about earlier before, it's a combination of connecting design to role-playing. So see who wants what, who needs what are compelling arguments to find an even level. And we have a beautiful Dutch word for that, and it's called polderen. I'm not sure what the English translation is. It might even be the same. It's about looking at all the different ideas that are within and try to find compromise between them. And if you then look at the game as SuperBarrio, for example, who try to quantify the context of it, that's a very difficult thing to do, especially if you try to make it bigger and try to still make it understandable. But if we can connect that with a good data set behind it, you could actively see, like, if you change this, what would be effectively on the data? And then people can start to play around and fine-tune a little bit to see if they can find the optimal solution for it. And I think that's in the end what urban planners and architects always try to do. Try to find the optimal solution in it for different actors, different stakeholders, but also budget-wise, climate-wise, mobility-wise. I hope this answers your question, Karim. Thank you.
Great. I think that it's the moment to close our session. So thanks a lot to our speakers. It was a very interesting session, and we really appreciated that our audience was interactive with us. You were doing really interesting questions, and I hope that you will follow the project and be involved in the next activities. So
let me just take the microphone also to remember, Chiara, sorry, that this is part of a series of events that IAAC has organized in the framework of the Semana d'Arquitectura, which is a Barcelona Architecture Week, which is a fantastic series of events running from the 7th until the 11th of May. And we are part of this nice project. And also the next events will be tomorrow with a workshop on creative food cycles. So also with an interactive part on the making of nature-based and products made with food resources. And also the following day on Thursday in the evening at 7, we're going to have a very interesting debate called Black Ecologies, which is the launch also of IAAC Beat Journal. And on Friday, another event, again organized in the framework of the Semana dell'Arquitectura, about how studying in Barcelona changed my life, which is part of a series of events related to a competition that IAAC has launched. It's a Design for Living advanced architecture competition. And these are students of IAAC who started to study in IAAC thanks to the competition itself, because the award is the possibility to study in one of our masters. So this will be on Friday, and all these events can also be seen on the website of the Semana dell'Arquitectura, that I would also like to thank Mies Foundation also, that has been part of the organization. Just this. Thank you.
Thanks, Marco. And they can also be followed on IAAC Facebook page.
Exactly.
So thanks a lot, and I hope to see all of you on our next event.
Thank you very much, and goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.